Welcome to the Bookshelf channel. Today, we're tackling one of the most brilliant and, let's be honest, brilliantly troubling novels of the 20th century, Vladimir Nabokov's Lolita. This is a book that's been hailed as a towering work of genius and condemned as absolute irredeemable filth. So the big question is, how on earth can it be both? Let's dive right into that paradox.
You know, when Lolita first hit the scene, the reaction wasn't just a little negative, it was a full-blown explosion. This quote right here from editor John Gordon really captures that immediate moral panic. He didn't just dislike it, he called it sheer unrestrained pornography and basically kicked off an international firestorm.
And that firestorm, man, it spread fast. The book's journey into publication was anything but smooth. It was like a literary hot potato, rejected by all the big publishers, defended by a few brave authors, and flat out banned by entire governments. But here's the crazy part. Despite all the bans, when it finally landed in the US in 1958, it was an absolute smash hit. It just goes to show, controversy can be very, very good for sales.
So what exactly caused all this chaos? Why did so many people back in the 1950s think this was pretty much the most dangerous book you could possibly get your hands on? Let's take a closer look.
Well, before it was even a book, Lolita was a publisher's nightmare. I mean, the major American houses wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. Their reasons were all over the place, from a very real fear of going to jail to, and this is a weird one, the complaint that there were no good people in the book. Eventually, Nabokov had to go to Olympia Press in Paris, a publisher famous for its, let's call it a mix of avant-garde literature and stuff that was, well, straight-up pornography.
Okay, so let's move past the scandal for a minute and get to the story itself. And this is really important. It's not the story of Lolita. It's the story of a girl named Dolores Haze.
The old book is structured as a confession, supposedly written from a prison cell. Our narrator is this highly educated, very witty European professor named Humbert Humbert, and he lays out in excruciating detail his criminal obsession with his 12-year-old stepdaughter, Dolores. It's a truly chilling account of grooming, manipulation, and a 2-year-long crime spree that he tries to pass off as some kind of epic American road trip.
Now, when you lay out the events like this, step by step, you really see how calculated the whole thing was. This wasn't some spontaneous act. It was a methodical, planned-out destruction of a child's life. From the strategic marriage to his final jealous, violent rampage, Humbert's story is just one long chronicle of his own monstrosity.
And here's the absolute gut punch. Nabokov tells us all of this right at the beginning in a fake foreword. Before we even hear a single word from Humbert, we know how it ends. Dolores never gets justice. She never gets to tell her side of the story. She dies in childbirth, barely 17 years old, the final tragic victim of everything her abuser put her through.
So this brings us to the central challenge of Lolita, the real puzzle of the book. How can a story that is so fundamentally horrific be told so beautifully? This is the novel's great artistic trap.
You know, Nabokov himself was perfectly clear about this. He knew exactly what he'd created. In his own words, Humbert is a monster who uses the sheer power of his language to make himself seem sympathetic, even touching. He isn't just a criminal. He's an artist of deception.
And the main tool he uses is a classic literary device, the unreliable narrator. Think about it. Humbert has total control of the microphone. Everything we see, everything we hear is filtered through his twisted, self-serving point of view. Nabokov's real genius is that he forces us, the reader, to become detectives. We have to constantly question what Humbert is telling us and hunt for the ugly truth buried under all his beautiful words.
And this slide just lays it all bare. It perfectly shows the giant chasm between Humbert's fantasy and Dolores' reality. On the left, you've got his gorgeous, lyrical language. The book opens with that famous, poetic line. He invents this whole idea of a nymphet to make his disgusting obsession sound mystical. And on the right, the cold, hard facts. He's a predator, and she is a child victim. Period.
So here's the thing. The book's beautiful style is part of its moral challenge. As the critic Lionel Trilling pointed out way back in 1958, the reader gets sucked into Humbert's world. We're charmed by his wit, we're dazzled by his prose, and in doing that, we almost become complicit. The book forces us to face our own ability to be seduced by a pretty surface, even when it's hiding something truly awful.
And maybe the greatest crime in Humbert's entire narrative is this. He completely erases Dolores. By controlling the story, he denies her a voice, a personality, any real agency. He turns a real girl into his Lolita, just a character in his sick fantasy. He literally traps her inside his own mind.
So all of this brings us to the novel's really complicated and, frankly, often deeply misunderstood legacy in our culture today.
I mean, just look at how the dictionary defines Lolita now. Notice what's missing? Any mention of victimhood. The word has been completely disconnected from the story of Dolores Haze's trauma and twisted into this label for a seductive young girl, which puts all the focus and sometimes the blame on the child.
And you see this Lolita effect everywhere in pop culture. From rock songs about creepy teacher-student dynamics to pop stars adopting the aesthetic, the name has become a kind of shorthand for a forbidden, edgy kind of sexuality, totally stripped of the book's dark, critical message.
And this is exactly why this all still matters so much. The book is still deeply controversial because our understanding of trauma and abuse has evolved, thankfully. The debate over Lolita isn't just about censorship anymore. It's about how we read a story of abuse when the only person telling it is the abuser himself.
And don't think for a second that this is ancient history. The firestorm that started in 1955 has never really gone out. As recently as late 2023, school districts right here in the US were still banning or restricting access to the novel. The same fears that haunted those first publishers are clearly still with us today.
And that leaves us with a final, really difficult question. Lolita doesn't give you easy answers. It doesn't have a neat moral lesson at the end. It's a masterpiece of language that forces us to stare into the abyss of an unbearable crime. It doesn't comfort us. It disturbs us. And maybe, just maybe, that's its most important and lasting purpose.